Hello and welcome to the Over the Edge Rope Volunteer webinar. My name is Todd. I'm one of the technical coordinators with Over the Edge, as well as a rope technician working on events out in the field. And the purpose of this webinar is to explain to you what Over the Edge is and what we do, and show you what you might expect to see when you show up to volunteer with us, as well as some of the things you may be doing while volunteering with us. If you have any questions at the end of this webinar, please feel free to email me anytime at todd@overtheedgeusa.com or call me at 866-434-8776, extension 124. Also, if you haven't already, I encourage everyone to join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/rope volunteer. So, volunteering with Over the Edge. Here's some photos of all of our volunteers there in the orange helmets working with us up on the roof and getting right along. Who is Over the Edge? So Over the Edge is a special events company that provides a signature rappelling event for nonprofits across North America. And now we've also expanded into Europe and the Caribbean, a few limited events outside of North America. Participants in the local market where the event is being held go out and raise pledges in exchange for a once in a lifetime opportunity to rappel off a building in their local area. Um, they raise these pledges on behalf of our nonprofit who hosts the event with us. Over the Edge takes care of all of the technical aspects of the event, including insurance, sending in professional rope staff, state-of-the-art equipment, and we provide a best practices manual to our clients for executing the event. We also ensure that the event conforms to all federal and state laws or the Canadian or UK equivalent of the same. So our founding mission was to help organizations across North America raise $50 million in 10 years through this event, which we reached in 2016, just under 9 years, so a little bit ahead of schedule when we reached that goal. And there you see in the middle is a presentation of a $10,000 check as part of our $50 million celebration. We had a give back campaign and we gave those checks to 5 different nonprofits across the country. And then we also have some photos of other events. A couple of people rappelling on the left there. On the right, we have the Salt Lake City soccer team mascot going over the edge. And bottom right, we have a lobster rappelling in Boston. So, professional rope staff. So, all of Over the Edge professional rope technicians are certified through either the Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians, or SPRAT, or the Industrial Rope Access Trade Association, IRATA. All of our professional staff are responsible for rigging, uh, rope team training, which includes all of our volunteers, on-site event management, and safety. So all of the technical stuff falls under the responsibility of our rope technicians. No participant goes over the edge without inspection and approval from a over the edge rope technician. So we keep you guys as hands-on as possible. You guys can do every single bit of the work at the event. It's not, you won't be sitting around at all. The one thing that we do have to do is make sure that one of our rope technicians has the final inspection of the rig on the participant before they go over the edge. Safety. So even though it may not look like it, technically, when we are operating in a market on a building, that is almost like a work site or a job site or construction site. Over the edge is in compliance with all OSHA regulations for working at height and fall protection, which are informed by the standards set by ANSI and ASTMA. In Canada, those regulations are described by the CCOHS Pro and informed by the CSA standards. In any other market we work in, such as the UK, it would be those equivalent regulating bodies and standards. All of the life safety ropes and equipment are industrial or fire service certified, not recreational. So these are not dynamic climbing ropes and not, you know, uh, just seat harnesses, that sort of thing. Everything is to an industrial standard, not for outdoor mountain climbing or any of that type of thing. For each event, we draw up a detailed site inspection safety plan, or SISP, which is completed for each of the individual events or work sites. This SISP includes things such as the job hazard analysis, which is notating any potential hazards that exist, like trip hazards or uh, low ceilings, things of that nature, anything where someone might get injured. Also, the evacuation plan, should there be an emergency or fire in the building of that sort of thing. Rescue plans, and a whole lot more. It's almost a 50-page document. So it goes without saying that safety is the most important aspect of the event, and any staff has the authority to stop the event if they feel something is unsafe. And when we say staff, this includes all of our rope volunteers. Everyone on the event site has the authority to call a stop to the event. I may be rigging a participant, and in the opposite direction behind me, you may see a lightning strike, and that would be something to, let me know and call a stop to the event. You will have a site safety supervisor on site. We always send at least one level 3 to every event who serves as our site safety supervisor, and they are the only ones who can then restart the event once they've determined that whatever the condition was for calling that stop has been mitigated. Technical logistics. So this is basically explaining the event from a technical standpoint. It is a 2-rope system with independent anchors. So what that means is every participant or every volunteer or every technician that's rappelling is on a 2-rope system, and both of those ropes are connected independently to the anchor, which is either a structural part of the building or an object engineered for this purpose. They're both independent. So if the anchors failed on one rope, the other rope is unaffected by that failure. It is a releasable rappel and safety line, meaning that if for any reason someone was unable to complete the rappel, we have the ability from above to lower those ropes all the way down to the ground. So that means that we also always have more than double the height of the building in rope in use. Everyone wears industrial full body harnesses when working in those zones that require harnesses or rappelling. We use a high point for ease of getting on the rope. What that means is you may have heard of it referred to as artificial high directional or high redirect or artificial high redirect or perhaps tripod. What that means is we raise the ropes up off of the ledge of the building in order to allow our participants to get on to rope and transfer from a standing position on top of the building to a standing position on the side of the building, um, without having to belly up to the wall and hike themselves over and have a difficult transition. Basically, it allows them to make the transition standing or sitting. We have posted safety checks for staging, training, and main rappels. You'll see those at your event. Basically, we have a checklist of things that need to be completed before the participant can move to the next area or the next station, if you will. There's also a rescue plan in place and practiced. This is also available at the event, so if you wanted to take a look at this, just go ahead and ask and someone will show it for you. We have them at multiple places during the event. So here is a picture of a rope volunteer doing a rappel. This is similar to what you would see on event day. If we look here, we see that this is our participant, which happens to be a volunteer. And both our participant and our technician are wearing full body harnesses. And as we discussed, we have The participant connected into a 2-rope system with a rappel line or main line, as well as a backup. And then here's that high redirect that raises those ropes up so that participant was able to make that transition to the side of the building in a standing or squatting or sitting type manner. And then we can see here that the ropes continue from that high redirect. They're not anchored to the high redirect. They go through it because they're just being redirected, not anchored. And those go off to the anchors, which are out of frame. And then we see here, we discuss this is a releasable system. So you see we have a belay device, in this case the Petzl ID, at the other end of the rope connected to the anchor extensions. Should that person be unable to complete the rappel, we could use that belay device to lower them all the way to the ground. Here's another photo from another angle of an event in full swing. The orange helmet there with the blue shirt is our volunteer. We have someone going over in a gorilla costume. And on the right, we have a photographer, which is a very common thing for us to have on event while we're in full swing. So again, we see everything we just talked about, full body harnesses, 2-rope system. But here we have a third rope or a third connection point that we couldn't see in the other photo. That is the travel restraint lanyard that doesn't allow these people working near the edge to cross over the edge of the building. They can't get their center of gravity beyond the threshold of the building, and that's what that's there for, to restrict their travel and prohibit them from getting off of that platform while they're working. In some cases, this is not always necessary for the participant because the railing or parapet wall, which is the short little wall that surrounds the roof, is at a sufficient height that OSHA considers it to be a form of fall protection itself. However, we typically always put our volunteers and our technicians working at the edge in one of these travel restraint lanyards, just in case a participant were to get very nervous while starting their rappel and try to reach out and grab you. You have a connection to the building that won't allow them to pull you off, regardless of the presence of that wall. And there's the travel restraint attachments highlighted. Okay, so this is again another photo looking backwards from the rappelling platform. This is showing the anchor side of the system. And again, we talked about having those independent anchors. So we see here we have our main line there highlighted in blue. And you can see it goes back to 2 independent anchors. These happen to be engineered anchors for the purposes of window washing. And then we have our backup line there highlighted now in orange. Again, you see it goes to 2 different window washing anchors, making that anchor for that rope. So again, 2-rope system, independent anchors, and this would constitute one person's rappelling lines. So this is one set of ropes for one person, because again, it is a 2-rope system. Another thing to point out here is that the angles of these anchor legs are not nearly as extreme as they appear to be. That's just the angle of the photo that gives that illusion. Makes things look much flatter than they are. Okay, and here's another, this is the event fully set up, ready for participants and volunteers and technicians to work. And here's an event in full swing. That's me in the foreground in orange, rigging up a participant. We have our volunteer there in blue and another one all the way on the right in an orange helmet. We also have quite a few photographers here. You can see them there in the light blue helmets, and you'll see anyone near that edge, myself included, is clipped into a travel restraint line. Again, 2-rope system for every tripod there. And again, the tripod is our high redirect in this case. So, volunteer staff. Our volunteers are an essential part of the rope team. So together with our technicians and our volunteers, we make up the rope team or rope staff. Those terms encompass everyone working on the event. Um, Volunteering with Over the Edge is a hands-on experience. Like I said, we like to get you guys as involved as you're comfortable with being. We just ask that you reserve the inspections for our rope technicians, our employee rope technicians. Things you might be doing as part of the um, volunteer staff are helping the participants with the rappel, helping them in and out of their harness, training them on how to use the equipment, attaching them to the ropes, coaching them over the edge, or providing a ground belay down below. There are many different jobs. We try and rotate the jobs so everyone gets a little taste of everything. And we can tailor that to what you like and what you're comfortable with. Some people just want to work on the ground. They don't want to be, at that edge looking over all day, and that's fine. We can do that. We can have you on the ground, or vice versa, or you can be in staging, helping set people up. Just let someone know what you feel like doing, and we will do our best to help you out with that. So there's another picture of our rope staff. So we took a candid after the serious professional shot. And here we go. Participant logistics. So this is going to be a walk through the event from the participant standpoint. So the participants all are pre-registered fundraisers who have been going out and soliciting funds and pledges in their local community to raise money for the nonprofit partner. So even though Over the Edge provides the technical part of the event, um, you're actually volunteering for and helping out the nonprofit cause, which may be Special Olympics or Extra Table, Autism Speaks, any number of nonprofit agencies may be hosting the event, and they are that charity component of the whole thing. So the participants have been out raising money for them. They are not just people who showed up on the street and saw this thing and thought it would be fun, like a carnival ride or that sort of thing. So they all have already assigned rappel times, and they're going to show up an hour before the rappel time and go to the nonprofit at the registration station, which is run by the nonprofit. We don't have anything to do with the registration table. They take care of that. And they sign in the participant. They check their name off on the schedule and making sure that they have arrived an hour before their scheduled rappel time. So if it's a 9 a.m. rappeller, they should be there at 8 a.m. obviously. And they're going to have them complete a waiver, and they're going to make sure that their pockets and their persons are totally empty. We don't want the participants to have anything that could turn into potential dropped objects. So no keys, no cell phones, no wallets. Glasses need to have a string on them, or a croaky or a lanyard, whatever you'd like to call it. All of that stuff, and we don't take it from them in staging because we don't want to take responsibility for anyone's stuff. So the nonprofit will take all of their stuff from them and then give them their waiver. They're going to take that waiver to us at our first station, which is called staging. At staging, they'll come up, present us with their waiver. We're going to again check them off on our list and make sure that they're supposed to be there, and they are roughly an hour ahead of schedule. At this point, because I've just gone through registration, it's going to be more like 45 minutes ahead of schedule. We're going to check that the waiver has been completed correctly and check off and record the time they arrived. After all that, we're going to confirm that their pockets are empty. We're going to make sure that their hair is tied back, and this goes for women and for men, especially if we have some men with those long ZZ top beards. We're going to make sure that those get rubber banded down so they don't become an entrapment hazard for the devices. We're going to make sure that we're going to double check that their pockets are completely empty and they don't have anything that they could drop. And then once all that's confirmed, they'll be taken into the staging area where they will be given all of their equipment. And then after that, once that's complete, they're escorted to the training area. Whenever a participant moves through the event, they're always escorted by a volunteer from the nonprofit. These are different than our rope volunteers. Because the building is allowing us into the the behind the scenes area of their building that's off limits to the general public. We want to have respect for that space, and we don't want to allow anyone to just roam through the building unescorted. So anytime we send a participant somewhere, we'll be giving them an escort. So the nonprofit will have escorts there. We're going to turn them over to the escort, and they're going to go to the training area. In the training area, they'll obviously receive training. So they'll be instructed on how to use the rappelling equipment, and then they'll take a short practice rappel, which is usually just a free hanging rappel from a tripod to the roof deck. Once they've completed that and they feel comfortable with how the equipment works, they'll again be taken to another escort who takes them to the main rappel. In some cases, because most of our trainings are ground school on the roof, if the training is within a few feet of the main rappel and we have clear lines of sight, we'll be able to just point and that participant will go over to the person at the main rappel who is receiving them. We don't need an escort in that case, but sometimes we do. Sometimes the training's inside. Sometimes it could be in a stairwell. Sometimes it could be way on the other side of the roof, completely out of view, and then we still do need that escort. At the main rappel, they obviously get rigged in and then do the rappel. We estimate 10 to 15 minutes for each of the participants to complete the rappel. At the bottom, they will be de-rigged from the ropes by our belayers and then turned over to another escort to take them back to staging where their equipment will be returned. And that's it. They are sent on their merry way. So, staging area volunteer responsibilities. Again, we talked about this in the last slide. Are going to collect the waiver, record the time on the schedule that they showed up, confirm that they have no dropped objects, again, keys, wallets, loose change, cell phones, cameras, etc. If they have a GoPro, we do have some GoPro mounts on our helmets, and we'll be able to put that, fix that camera on for them, or if they're wearing a body harness to wear it, that sort of thing, that's fine. We don't allow any still cameras, so they can't, even if it has a strap on it, they can't rappel, then stop halfway down the building and start snapping away with their SLR. Just those mountable action cameras only. We're going to instruct the participant on how to put on the harness. Some participants, this is all you'll need to do is instruct them. Other participants, you're going to be doing most of the work for them because they're not used to putting on a harness or tightening buckles or that sort of thing. It all depends. We try and get the participant to do as much as they possibly can, and then we help them out. And again, the next bullet point says adjust and tighten harness. So again, you're going to be helping them out with that. Attaching hardware to the appropriate attachment points, and assigning helmet, gloves, and radio, or as I call it, the safety equipment. Helmet, gloves, radio. So every participant gets a harness, the rappelling equipment, and then helmet, gloves, and radio. Once we think they're completely geared up, we're going to perform the staging area safety checklist, which will be posted in staging. But basically, it's just what we went over right there. So again, once they've completed training, staging, and they've gotten their staging checklist completed, they're turned over to training. So in the training area, they're introduced to their backup device, the Petzl ASAP, and their rappelling device, the Petzl ID. We explain how each of these work to them, and then each participant, has a go at locking and unlocking the main and backup device and seeing how they work. We hook the participants up to do a little training rappel, like that tripod you see there. They'll just hang from that tripod and do a short little training rappel, to the roof deck, just a few feet, to see how how to start moving on that device. Again, before they do the rappel, we do a check on them to make sure that everything is done correctly before they load the ropes. This comes in particular concern for some events that do have a short training rappel still. They are maybe 1 or 2 stories from either a higher level on the roof or some other area where they do a 1 to 2 story rappel to familiarize themselves with the device. In those cases, we need a over-the-edge employee technician to inspect them, just like at the mains, before they can get on the system. So once everything is good, if a over-the-edge technician inspection is required, once that is all completed, the participant will sit back into the harness and we'll explain how the equipment works, and they'll give it a try and practice rappelling and stopping and all of that. And again, familiarize themselves with how everything's going to work once they get to the main rappel. Here is the Petzl ASAP. This is the backup device that's going to be on their orange rope. It is a mobile fall arrestor, so there's a wheel inside, and the wheel just rolls down the rope as they rappel. They drag it by their shock absorbing lanyard, which is attached to their harness. And basically, they don't have to do anything unless they go too fast or try and bound off the building like they're in the SWAT team. So this creates a speed limiting factor to the rappel, and it discourages bounding like we just talked about. You'll see on the right there is um, there are three examples of the Petzl ID. The upper photo is the first generation, or I'm sorry, Petzl ASAP. The upper photo is the first generation of the ASAP. You see it has that big piece of black plastic at the bottom, and it's much larger. There's also an eye hole at the bottom, which we can attach a lanyard to keep it connected to that carabiner for when we're putting it on and off rope. The lower left photo is the second generation, and you can see they chopped the whole bottom portion off, including that eye hole. So because of that, there is no way to connect that device to the carabiner itself. So if you happen to see this model on your event, be cognizant that when you remove that carabiner and take it off rope, that device is now a drop hazard, and there's nothing to stop it from being dropped. So you have to be very careful with those. Thankfully, we don't have many of those out in service any longer. Most of our newer equipment is going to be the one on the right, the Petzl lock. That's the ASAP lock, and that can be put on and off the rope without ever removing any carabiners or anything. It stays all in one piece. There are two cams at the bottom. You can see the little black plastic tabs that open up that device. The rope goes in, and then they close again, locking the rope in place. So we really like that one. Petzl ID. This is what you actually do the rappelling on. It's a self-braking variable friction descender for single ropes. So that's all pretty self-explanatory. Variable friction means that you can vary the amount of friction the device has between it and the rope, which allows you to go faster or slower. It's self-braking, meaning if the participant takes their hand off the device, it will stop. Petzl prefers the language assisted braking um, because, well, I don't know why, but that's what they prefer, that language, assisted braking. Uh, and it is intended for use on single ropes. So it is a two-rope rappel. Each rope goes to each of the devices. It's not like a double rope rappel like you might do in climbing. Um, so again, for use with single rope, and this will be connected to their main line or rappel line, whatever you'd like to call it. It has an anti-panic feature. So again, we talked about that variable friction. The harder you pull, the faster you go, or the less you pull, the slower you go. However, if you go and pull too hard all at once, the device will lock out, and you'll have to reset that handle. And that's something we'll go over with both you and the participants in training. It can be loaded and unloaded from the rope while still attached to the participant. So if you see that little black piece at the bottom of the gold faceplate, that is a gate, just like on a carabiner, and that can be opened and the faceplate articulated around, and it gives you access to the inner workings of the device to install the rope. Again, you never have to remove this from the participant. It never becomes a drop hazard. Once the rope is inside, you just rotate that faceplate back around and close it down over the rope. In addition to being used on the participants, you may also see this device used in rigging or by the OTE techs or in a rescue scenario. This is a pretty all-around device for us. Again, for the Petzl ID as well as the ASAP, the technical information from Petzl's website can be found at this link and the one before for the ASAP. We will put these links in the description of the video below. Okay, so main rappel volunteer responsibilities. You're going to be attaching the fall restraint rope to the participant if needed. Like I said, you will have one on you yourself, and if it's needed for the participant depends on the height of the parapet wall or guardrail. Uh, you will attach the ASAP to the backup line. That's the orange line. You'll attach the ID to the main line. You will perform the pre-rappel safety checklist, communicate with the ground staff. Belay on blue, Bob is on blue, and then they'll communicate back to you. Copy Bob on blue or ready on belay, something of that nature. And then the OTE technical staff will come over and perform a final safety check on that participant to ensure that everything is hooked up correctly. And then we will usually remove that fall restraint lanyard, and I'll turn the participant back over to you to coach them over the side. Uh, in some events, you'll find that the OTE technician will also perform the radio check and communicate with the ground staff. So you may just be rigging them up, calling the tech over, and the tech will check the radio, call down, get that belay, do an inspection, and remove the lanyard. Or you may be doing the communication. It all depends, and you're going to get a hands-on training at your event too, and you'll see exactly how that's going to work and which system they like to use. You're going to monitor their initial descent, just watching for any lowering scenarios or rescue scenarios. Alerting the OTE technical staff if there is a rescue scenario or if the participant has locked up their backup device, that sort of thing. Again, we just say initial descent because you don't need to crane your neck over the edge the entire way, especially on these 400-foot buildings, because between you looking down and the belayers looking up, they're always within someone's line of sight. So at the bottom they're monitoring the second half of the rappel, you're monitoring the first half, and then between both of you, we've got them covered the whole way down. Okay. Belay volunteer responsibilities. You're going to, again, communicate with the top, on belay, on rope, off rope, those sort of things. You're going to monitor the rappeller speed and condition of their rappel. You're providing a fireman belay, which allows you to control the descent of the participant. If you pull really hard, you can stop them at any point along the rappel. For some people, especially if they have more gravity on their side than someone else, then you may find that whenever they open their handle, they seem to only be able to go full speed. So in those cases, you're going to want to put a lot of tension on the rope. The exact opposite if they're a very small, petite person, they're fighting a lot of rope weight, so you want to give them a very light belay. Same goes for when they're at the top. They have a lot of rope weight to contend with, so you're going to give them little to no belay or tension on the belay, I should say. You still have the rope in your hands, but then as they come into like the last 20 feet or so, or the last couple stories, you're going to be increasing that tension steadily throughout the building because the less rope weight there is hanging below them, the faster they're able to go. And we want them to come in a nice controlled manner. We don't want anyone to roll an ankle or anything of that nature. So you're going to, just like on top, you're looking to identify and report any rescue or lowering scenarios. Again, looking for those backup lockups. Controlling the descent like we just talked about using the tension on the rappel rope, also known as the bottom belay or fireman's belay. The participants are going to be really psyched when they get to the bottom and really proud and enthused about what they just did. So you're going to give lots of congratulations, tons of hugs down there, that sort of thing. It's a very celebratory station to be working. You're going to help the participant off of the rope by removing their hardware from the ropes. You're going to let the top know that the ropes are clear and ready for the next participant as soon as both ropes are removed from the participant's devices. And then you're going to turn them over to the escort for the nonprofit to bring back to staging to return their equipment. In some events, they may be using gear runners depending on the size of the event and the distance from the belay to back to staging. In those cases, you may be assisting the nonprofit volunteers with getting the equipment off of the participants and running it back up to staging. So, what does Over the Edge provide? So, we provide water on training and event day. On event day, we provide drinks and lunch. We also provide all of the technical equipment, harnesses, helmets, gloves, ropes, hardware. We do have to provide our harnesses and our hardware. We can't allow people to bring their own just because that's not within our control. We don't know how the gear has been used or potentially abused. I will say with gloves, if you have a pair of rope gloves that you like to use when you're working and you're someone who likes to wear gloves when they're working with rope, then you should bring those gloves if you have them because our gloves are great for repelling and protecting your hands from getting burned by the rope, but they're not the best for like rigging and opening carabiners and putting ropes in and that sort of thing. So if you'd like to wear gloves for that type of thing and you have a pair of gloves that you like, I recommend that you do bring those. Otherwise, we do have gloves there available. They're just, in my opinion, not the most dexterous. They're great for rappelling, though. We'll give you a staff T-shirt to identify you as part of the rope team and what you should bring. Obviously, it goes without saying, a safety conscious mindset, energy, and enthusiasm. That's the number one thing. Uh, we like to say that if you could tie your shoes, you can volunteer with Over the Edge. You don't really need that prior rope experience, but you do need to, be like an energetic, outgoing, like coach type person that will help these people feel safe and confident about what they're trying to do because you'll see that the participants span all spectrums of the rainbow from very adventurous and go get it and no fear whatsoever to almost shaking too much to pull on that handle, so it spans the whole gambit, and they look to you for that energy and enthusiasm and confidence. Please wear non-marking closed-toed shoes. So, closed-toed is an imperative. You have to be wearing closed-toed shoes. Because, like I said, it is, in effect, a construction site or a job site or work site. We need you to have those closed-toed shoes. No sandals, please, or flip-flops. And please, no soft rubber marking type shoes because we don't want to put any marks on the outside of the building that was so gracious to allow to host us for the event. Pants or shorts below the knee. Again, these harnesses are industrial in nature, so they're designed for people wearing over their thick canvas denim work pants, that sort of thing. So you want to minimize any contact between the harness and your skin because it's just not made to be on bare skin like potentially a climbing harness might be. So again, if you're gonna wear shorts, go with a longer short that comes below the knee because you want to cover where that harness is gonna go over. Sunglasses with a keeper. If you don't have any keepers, that's fine. We'll have some there for you. But please do bring your own if you have, so we don't run out. A hat, if you like to wear hats, bring a hat and sunscreen. We usually always have sunscreen with us, but it is kind of a one size fits all type sunscreen. So it's going to be a high SPF, like a 50 or a 60, or if there's something higher than that. So if you're someone who likes to get a little bit of bronze and you like to use those 15s and 30s, probably bring your own stuff. Otherwise, we should have some on site. On-site training. So when you show up, we're going to familiarize you with the equipment, just like we talked about. We're going to review the participant flow. So all those stations we mentioned, from registration to the main rappel to the bottom belay, we're going to walk you through the site and show you where all of them are and explain to you how the participants are going to be moving through them, whether or not we're going to use gear runners, that sort of thing. We're going to go over an additional fall protection safety with you that the participants will not receive because they're in our control. So we make sure that they're never exposed to a fall, but you guys are working with us, so you're going to get an additional fall protection safety briefing. We're going to go over the job hazard analysis. That's pointing out anything on site that could be potentially dangerous to you. Yeah, that sounds very dire, but it's more like things like watch out for that wire chase there. You could trip over that, or there's a low clearance stepping through that doorway onto the roof, so don't bang your head. And everyone will be wearing helmets, and anything like that will be marked with caution tape, that sort of thing. But we're going to go over those hazards as well as the obvious hazards of being too close to the edge and any potential falls, and how we mitigate those by, again, that's all in that fall protection safety briefing that you will receive. We're going to go through the emergency rescue procedures, including the emergency muster area. Just like when you're a kid, your parents told you if there's a fire, we all meet over here. Same kind of thing. We all have an emergency muster location. We'll meet if there is an emergency. You're going to do the rope team practice and the rappel. So you're going to go through the whole event as a participant and a volunteer, learning both how participants move through the event and all of the extra knowledge that you need to know, such as how to install and remove the devices, which the participants don't need. And then you'll get your position specific instructions. So we're going to go through every station with everyone and go over all of the ins and outs specific to that station. And like I said, we do through all of the stations. So we're going to talk real briefly on fall protection. Again, there'll be more of this on site, but the OSHA standards for fall protection is the OSHA 29 CFR 1926-501, the duty to have fall protection. These options include engineered controls such as guardrails or parapet walls, which we've discussed a little bit already, fall protection systems, travel restraint or positioning systems, which we've also discussed just a little bit at this point. And then administrative measures, example, designated areas. So that's things like you can use caution tape or other type of rope line or whatever to designate areas on the roof that where fall protection is required or not required, or essentially it's stating this area here you must be on fall protection, or this area here you're safe for to observe not in fall protection, that sort of thing. Designated areas, pretty self. So here's some examples of guardrails. That's the top right photo, or parapet walls, which is the bottom left. Our staff on site will explain to you which type of wall you have, if that parapet wall is high enough that OSHA considers it to be a fall protection wall. So again, that is specific to each event. Some events have no parapet wall, some have just a couple inches high. Again, your tech team will tell you which type of parapet wall you have. So, definitions of personal fall protection systems. So, travel restraint, which is the one that we will be using most of the time on the event, almost exclusively, is a type of personal fall protection system used to limit a person's travel to prevent exposure to a fall hazard. Travel restraint systems consist of a combination of an anchor, connector, lanyard, and body support. Connector is typically going to be a carabiner, and body support is that harness. Uh, Again, we're going to have an example on the next slide of that, but basically what it's saying is it's some type of rope or lanyard connected to you that prevents you from potentially falling off the edge. Positioning systems, or work positioning systems, is a type of fall protection system designed to support a person in a fixed location on an elevated vertical surface so the person can work and have both hands free. So the example of your positioning system are going to be when you're on the rappel. So if you were doing actual rope access work, say you were installing one of those big signs on the side of a building, you'd get on your rappelling system, rappel down to the sign and stop and work, and that's an example of a work positioning system. You're connected to two ropes that allow you to work hands-free. Otherwise, you're going to be in a travel restraint system when you're not on rappel. Definitions of administrative measures. Unprotected sides and edges. This term means any side or edge of the roof surface where there is no wall, guardrail system or stair rail system to protect people from falling to a lower level. Pretty self-explanatory. It's just saying that there's nothing there to stop you from falling over the edge. Again, that those parapet walls, if they are below a certain height, then as far as OSHA is concerned, they might as well not even be there. So again, look to your staff, to the rope staff to let you know what type of parapet wall you have there. So just because you have a parapet wall doesn't mean that you can, you know, just go up to it and think that that's sufficient. Designated areas is a distinct portion of the roof surface delineated by a perimeter warning line in which people may be allowed in certain situations without using additional fall protection. And we talked about that. Designated areas for the use of fall protection or for not needing fall protection. And here is an example of a travel restraint system, and this is typical to what you'll be using on your event. You have an anchor point there on the wall, the fixed lanyard, which is of a length that doesn't allow that little black stick figure guy to cross the edge of the building. And then obviously beyond that edge is the fall hazard. And he's wearing a bright orange harness, which is neato. So, one other thing I want to go over with all of the volunteers is our weather policy. All of the gear is rated and tested to work in the inclement weather. So these events essentially run rain or shine. If the rain reaches such a heavy level that it impairs the ability of the staff to work and the overall safety of the event, such as we cannot see the participant as they rappel because the rain is that heavy, we will call a stoppage for rain. Thunder or lightning is something that will also stop the event. We are monitoring lightning throughout the day via satellite. So if lightning comes within a designated distance of the building, the stoppage will be called until skies are cleared within that area for prescribed amount of time. And also high winds. If we have winds gusting over 25 miles per hour at the rappel face, we will call a stoppage to the event in the hopes that the wind will die down and we can proceed after a brief stoppage. But other than those situations, the event does run rain or shine. So if you're getting ready to come out for event day with us and you know the weather's going to be crap, you should bring rain gear with you or a change of clothes at least for after the event. Some of these events are pretty warm, so it might be nice to get a little cooling rain midday, but you're going to probably want dry clothes for the ride home. So, pack appropriately. And on behalf of myself, Over the Edge, our nonprofit partners, we want to thank you all for volunteering with us. Over the Edge cannot happen without the support of the community and minded individuals like yourselves. And thank you for joining the OTE team. It's really exciting to go to all these different cities and out there. We look forward to meeting all of you. I've made so many friends along the way, and I started out as a volunteer myself. I did over 11 events before I came on staff with Over the Edge. I've been on staff now since I think 2013. So this is my fourth or fifth season. While as I record this, and one of the ways we like to say thank you to all of you is by offering the opportunity to do the rappel, schedule permitting, to all of you who feel inclined to do so. It's not mandatory. If you're just happy helping people out all day, you do not have to do the rappel. But if you'd like the opportunity to do so, we do try and make that available to you for free. Again, thank you from myself, Over the Edge, and the nonprofit partner hosting your event. I hope to see you out there and see you on the roof. If you have any questions, please email Todd at overtheedgeusa.com or give me a call at 866-434-8776, extension 124. All of the any links we mentioned are in the description below, as well as a link for our Facebook group to join the OTE volunteer Facebook group, and the links to sign up to volunteer for an event. Again, any questions at all, please feel free to email me or call me anytime. Thank you all very much.